Okay, well, you've had a chance to hear all these five wonderful children's book creators speak, and I bet you all have questions. It could be about something that they've said or something that they haven't said, books that weren't even mentioned that they created. So who would like to start?
What sustained you to keep going and going and going and going?
Advice for a young writer, is that summing up? I think it's good. I think getting stuck happens to older people more than younger people often. I mean, I think younger people should write whatever they want and stop writing when they don't like what they're writing and go on to something else. As a young person, I wrote the first act of plays, half of poems, this and that. I still sort of do that. I'm finding my way, very messy. It's good to be very forgiving of yourself, to understand that. Certainly for me, nothing comes out right the first time, the fifth time, the 10th time. I think I need to be more patient than a young person, but I think it's good for everyone to know that it is a process, and what you see on the page took a long time to get there. So don't let that scare you off.
Okay, who else has a question?
I just wanted to add something to that.
sorry.
That sometimes when young people show a talent or an affinity for something, then adults come along and they put this heavy mantle, like, you're a writer, you're an artist, you're this, you're that. But there's nothing more precious than the space to just evolve and blossom and grow without all that pressure to write a novel or something like that. Just what you're saying, to do a half poem and just leave it and let it go. So the folks around your daughter as well can contribute by just letting her, blossom and enjoying that.
I wanted to comment on the getting boys to read books that are labeled girl books. So I teach fifth grade, and I will say, Catherine Patterson, that they love El Defo, boys and girls. Love it, love it. Maybe because it's a graphic novel, and they seem pretty drawn to that. But I've also found if I read a book, if I read it to them out loud, day by day, or however I do it, when it's the boys in the class, like right now, we're reading Wolf Hollow, whose main characters really are, or at least the good ones, are really, they're girls, and the boys are obsessed, absolutely obsessed. So I think that's a good way to get them to read what might be considered girl books, by reading it out loud and not, as you said, labeling it that way. I think that's a big deal.
There is a line in Clayton Bird Goes Underground, and if you follow Mr. Shu Reads on Twitter, he just tweeted it yesterday, and it was basically that that cool papa, the grandfather, reads to Clayton every night, even though his mother and father said he was too old to be read to. So, how are we contributing to ending the wonder of the spoken story to and enchanting young people with story? How do we contribute to that?
I just want to play off what you just said. I teach 8th grade in Providence, Rhode Island, and I do the same thing. We have some boys and girls coming through. They are struggling readers. So we'll do the same thing. We'll pick a novel, we'll read it out loud, they'll have a copy in front of them. So we read True Believer by Woolf. They have no idea the protagonist. They just love the story. You don't say anything to them, you just read the story. And for some of them, they're going to tell you, that was the best book I ever read. It might have been the first book they ever read, but it at least gets them involved, and the conversation goes in the classroom. So I do believe just reading any way you possibly can read to them to get them interested is wonderful. And I thank you all for your beautiful talent, because it makes my job so much easier.
I'm going to add one more thing. The librarians and the teachers. I think that somebody mentioned genre, and I think that's too helps boys. If it's a science fiction or fantasy character, they don't care if it's a girl, boy, or anything. It's almost like it doesn't matter. So that's a really good way to get into.
Hi, I'm Raina, and I teach 5th grade, and I'm also an instructional technology specialist, so I have a comment and a question. My comment was, I wonder what the world would be like if every young boy read, "Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret." And my question is, the tech side of me is, how has your writing evolved or changed with the rapid change of technology? Because I'm sure when many of you started, things are very different than today.
All right. Okay, first let me just say about Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. I have, if you query most, like these young, or I shouldn't say young, but a lot of male celebrities, and you ask them what book they remember reading, a lot of the males will say Judy Blume's landmark book. There's something iconic about that book, and that it just really blew something open for a generation. But I think boys read it now and get into it all the same. And about the technology, there's something about me that can't stop handwriting. But on the flip side, as soon, like when it's time, it's only when it's time for it to really be something, do I start to type it. I guess I don't want to see it in any kind of somewhat finished form when I know it ain't nowhere near I don't want it to look like something set in type. That's just me and my arthritis. But I'm kind of halfway in the digital world and using it, and the other side of me must have that physical kind of contact with what I do.
I was going to say that when I first started, which was not that long ago, I couldn't conceive of using any kind of Photoshop or Illustrator to work on a children's book. But now, because I need to maximize my efficiency, I can try out 100 ideas in Photoshop. Whereas if I do it by hand, that's like 2 weeks worth of work or maybe more. So I think of digital things as just tools, like a pencil, like paper, like a crayon, and not to let it become the storyteller. So to just use it as a tool. So I see myself moving a little bit in that direction, never completely, but I definitely will use it to its best advantage. Thanks for asking.
Do you ever regret doing something to one of your characters?
Yes, I'm often accused of murder. Somebody was reading one of my books recently, and they said, "So many terrible things happen to this poor person." I said, "Yes, you're reading one of my books." Yeah, I don't regret doing it because I wouldn't have written the book if I thought I could keep Leslie Burke alive. I knew she was going to die from the beginning, and the only way I kept her alive was not to finish the book, which, when I realized that it was not only my son's friend that I was not wanting to think about her death again, but my own, I had cancer, so I thought maybe it was my own death that I had to face. Leslie Burke is still very much alive to me, and of course, as long as the book lives, she's still alive. I write about people that are in difficult situations, as do some of my friends. So, do you regret things you've done to your characters, Rita?
Well, I almost did something very bad to one of the characters who was kind of cruising for a bruising. But before I actually did it, I posted on Facebook, "So, what do you think about knocking off one of the characters?" Well, that day I learned I had Facebook followers. People replied. I went, I think I will not do this time. Now, you know, it's kind of rare for me to really reach out and to ask an audience, what do you think about this? Because, you know, I always take full responsibility for what it is I write and know what it is I'm writing. But I had really, really thought long and hard about knocking off one of my characters. And in the back of my mind, I knew it wasn't quite the right thing to do, but this time I kind of needed someone to say, Rita, are you crazy? You better not. And then I had to think, okay, would I change my mind? Would I let that influence me? You know, what did I really think? And I think this was one of those places where I thought, I'm not sure I'm going to ask.
Hi, I'm looking forward to reading your books. And I'm glad you mentioned Facebook, because that was my question is, what are your thoughts on social media and expressing yourself as yourselves?
When I put myself out there as a person, as a Rita Williams Garcia, I'm Rita Williams Garcia, the author, and so I'm talking mostly about my books. I'm talking about some little obscure things about me that my readers might get a kick out of knowing some silly thing about me or whatever have you, and then I might retweet or tweet something that I agree with or what have you. I myself, even though I applaud loudmouth heroines, I myself don't tend to get on my soapbox because I pour all of that into my writing. So the things that I think about that really fuel me, all of those things go into my writing. So I don't, or if I'm invited to speak somewhere on that subject, that's where I tend to put all of that.
I was going to say, Facebook is a luxury for me because I don't really have time. So when I do get on there, I like to do things that unlock other people's opinions. Like I would say, post a question like, who thinks that art and design are essential to a good life? And 200 people will weigh in and say, absolutely, rah, 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 and it makes me feel really good. Or, I mean, I use Facebook to make myself feel good, and also hopefully other people, you know, I send shout outs to people and that sort of thing. And it's very uneven. I might go months and not check Facebook because I'm busy working on books and things like that. And then all of a sudden I might post an image and people will say, wow, that's a great image. And it's like, it's a great ego boost. And I can do the same thing for other people that are busy who might post something and I can rah-rah them. So I think it's an essential part of my life, even though it's not a consistent part of my life, to get on my Facebook community and send some shout outs and some uplifting messages. And one time I wrote about on Father's Day, my father passed away when I was 8 years old. And here I was at whatever age I was, and I had all of these intense feelings after all these years, and I wrote about that, and someone thanked me for being transparent, for sharing something about myself that they didn't know. This is someone who's known me all my life. And so I think that you can also do that. You can share something about yourself that then unlocks other people sharing about things that maybe they were holding into. So I think it's a fantastic tool. I don't use Instagram. I don't tweet because I don't know how to do that stuff. But I'm still on Facebook, and I think it's wonderful. I'll keep doing it.
We do need to, do we, okay, we can have one more question.
One more.
And then we need to get to the autographing.
Ms. Holmes, how do you suggest that I get better at drawing?
Thank you for that lovely question. My answer is draw every day.
Right.
Draw a toothpick, draw a jar, a cup, a flower, and every day you'll learn new things about your particular personality in drawing. I would also say look at drawings and ask yourself, how did they do that? And come up with your own answer. So just keep at it. I mean, I started drawing at maybe 4 or 5 years old, well, maybe even younger. And maybe it was scribble dibble, and I've come a long way from just doing this, right? But it all came from just doing it day after day and enjoying the process, not pressuring yourself to do what someone else is doing or to be the best drawer in the whole world, but just to enjoy blossoming as an artist. Thank you for that question.
Thank you. Thank you to all 5 of you so much. You're all fabulous.